In this video, we're going to learn about the evolutionary relationships among different animals. All animals come under the kingdom of Animalia. Animals evolved from protists that show animal-like features and hence are sometimes called as protozoa. Scientists have found that choanoflagellates are the closest relative to animals. In fact, it is thought that some choanoflagellates came together to form sponges, which are the earliest animals known. In the sponges, we are able to see these specialized cells called choanocytes that are very, very similar to choanoflagellates. All members of kingdom Animalia are multicellular eukaryotic organisms that are heterotrophs and show the presence of cells that form tissues and have specialized functions. Kingdom Animalia comes under the domain of eukarya. Based on different anatomical features as well as embryonic development, animals have been classified into different types of phyla. There are more than 35 phyla that have been identified, but most of the animals can be grouped into around 10 phyla. These phyla include the ones listed below, and all of these, with the exception of chordata, include animals that do not have a backbone and hence are called as invertebrates. In order to understand the evolutionary relationships among different animals, scientists have studied different morphological traits as well as performed molecular techniques on animals, including whole genome analyses and ribosomal RNA analyses. These results showed that all animals belong to the clade of metazoa. This clade is a monophyletic clade as it includes all the descendants of the ancestor. Animals present in the clade metazoa can be further divided into other clades. The first clade we're going to look at is Parazoa. Parazoa translates to the first animals. The organisms that come under the phylum of Porifera belong to the clade Parazoa. All other animals can be grouped into the clade Eumetazoa. Eumetazoa indicates or translates to true animals. These are animals that are considered to have true tissues that arise from germ layers. It should be noted that Porifera does have specialized cells that allow the organism to function appropriately, and to a certain extent, some scientists believe that these can be considered as tissues. However, they don't arise in the same way as the tissues arise in the organisms that are in the clade Eumetazoa. During the early development of animals, layers of cells are formed called as germ layers. The cells of these germ layers can give rise to different tissues that are present in animals. Animals that have two germ layers are called as diploblasts. In these animals, the outermost layer is called as the ectoderm, while the inner germ layer is called as the endoderm. Between the ectoderm and the endoderm, there is a jelly-like substance called as mesoglia. And thus, animals that have only the ectoderm and endoderm are the diploblasts and include organisms present in the phyla of Porifera, Ctenophora, Cnidaria, and Placozoa. On the other hand, there are many animals that have three germ layers and hence are called as triploblasts. In these animals, the outermost germ layer is called as the ectoderm, similar to what we saw in the diploblasts. The innermost layer is the endoderm. And between the ectoderm and the endoderm, we have the mesoderm. And thus, instead of having mesoglia, triploblasts have a layer of cells, which is the mesoderm, and hence they have 3 germ layers. Animals can be grouped into a clade based on their body symmetry. Most animals show bilateral symmetry and hence come under the clade of bilateria. All bilaterians are triploblasts. It should be noted that organisms belonging to the clade Porifera, Ctenophora, Cnidaria, and Placozoa are diploblasts, and hence they don't tend to show bilateral symmetry and instead show radial symmetry or no symmetry at all. The organisms belonging to these phyla are considered to be the basal phyla. Organisms belonging to the clade Bilateria can be further grouped into 3 clades based on their developmental features. These include the clade of Lophotrochozoa, the clade of Ecdysozoa, and the clade of Deuterostomia. Animals belonging to the clade Lophotrochozoa and Ecdysozoa are also called as protostomes. Let us see how these are different than those animals present in the clade Deuterostomia. For that, let us consider the zygote, which is a single cell. The zygote must undergo a series of mitotic divisions during the process of cleavage. Once cleavage occurs, these ball of cells undergo movements during the process of gastrulation. As part of the cell movements, a pore is formed called as the blastopore. In the case of Lophotrochozoans and Ecdysozoans, this blastopore ultimately becomes the mouth of the organism. In the case of deuterostomes, which are the animals that belong to the clade of Deuterostomia, things occur a little differently. If we start with the zygote once again and go through the process of cleavage, it's very similar in that mitotic divisions occur to form a ball of cells. During gastrulation, these cells start moving around to go to their appropriate places, and during this process, a pore, which is the blastopore, is formed. In this case, the blastopore that is formed becomes the anus of the organism. And thus, in the case of protostomes, where the word means first mouth, the blastopore forms the mouth. Whereas in the case of deuterostomes, the blastopore becomes the anus, and thus the mouth is formed second. Animals belonging to the clade Lophotrochozoa are all invertebrates that are protostomes. Some of them have a crown of ciliated tentacles called as a lophophore, which is one of the origins of the word Lophotrochozoa. Some other animals form a special type of larvae during their development called as a trochophore larvae, which contributes to the second part of the name of Lophotrochozoa. Animals present in the phylum of Mollusca, Annelida, Ectopracta, Platyhelminthes, and others come under Lophotrochozoa. Similar to Lophotrochozoans, animals that belong to the clade of Ecdysozoa are invertebrates that are protostomes. What is different among these animals is that they usually possess external skeletons that are also called as exoskeletons. These exoskeletons are usually made from polysaccharides like chitin. These exoskeletons do not grow as the body of the organism grows, and hence the organism is forced to shed or undergo a process called as molting, where it discards the exoskeleton. Molting is also called as ecdysis, by which the name Ecdysozoa originates. In the figure that is shown, we are able to see an insect undergo molting, where the brown part of the structure is the actual exoskeleton of the insect, while the pale structure that is seen emerging from this brown one is the actual insect, which is now larger than what its exoskeleton can be. The organisms that belong to the phylum of Arthropoda and Nematoda come under the clade of Ecdysozoa. The third clade that comes under bilateria is Deuterostomia. All animals present in the clade of Deuterostomia are triploblasts, and hence they give rise to 3 germ layers during their development. During early development, when a blastopore is formed, this blastopore develops into the anus, and hence these organisms are called deuterostomes. Organisms in Deuterostomia can be invertebrates as well as vertebrates. In fact, all vertebrates come under the clade of Deuterostomia. Thus, organisms belonging to the phyla of Echinodermata, Chordata, and others come under the clade of Deuterostomia. These include animals like starfish, which are echinoderms, tunicates, which are considered as chordates but are invertebrates, and all vertebrates. With this, we come to the end of our talk where we learned about the origins of kingdom Animalia as well as some features of organisms that are in the kingdom of Animalia. We also learned about the traditional classification of animals and the different phyla that are present. We also learned about germ layers and how animals can be diploblasts or triploblasts. We learned about different clades of animals and how to differentiate between protostomes and deuterostomes.